So, welcome everyone to our Coaching Cafe. Happy Friday to you. It's just so great to see so many people coming on the line, and there's so many great coaches on the line as well. So, I am really looking forward to a really interactive session today. This has been by far the most registrations, and it's likely to be the highest number of attendees we've ever had on our Coaching Cafe. So I'm very excited to be here with you today. It's Natalie Ashdown, by the way. And now it's been, I think, 2 weeks since a lot of government decrees came down and people started to really switch from what they were doing to a whole new world, as we've been talking about. And so the topic today is, well, now what? So how do we really focus as leaders and as coaches on coaching virtual teams now that we've moved into this new space? So that's the topic of today, and I want to give you some practical tips and tricks for leading and coaching a virtual team. And I really want to talk about the role that we have in coaching, show you some of the coaching models again, and think about things to watch out for. But as I said, there's so much experience on the line. So what I was actually hoping for is that you would feel really comfortable to share your tips and tricks and what you're noticing. So this is all about us sharing as a community. I want to welcome the people who haven't joined our Coaching Cafe before. This is not new for us. We've been coming together every Friday, actually. We love our Fridays. To do a bit of a top up of our coaching skills, to think about things that are happening in the workplace, how we can apply our coaching and our leadership skills. And we're all about creating a community, sharing learned experience, and having some really thought-provoking conversations. So if you're new to us, welcome, and welcome back to everyone as well who's been who've been joining our coaching cafes for quite some time. This will be nothing new to jump on Zoom and off we go, but for a lot of people actually out in our workplaces, it is very new. So let's talk about how we can support people from that point of view as well. So, but first, I wanted to go with a Dilbert cartoon, but I just couldn't choose my favorite cartoon. So if you actually want to waste like hours of time, just type into a Google search funny images on working from home, and you can spend a lot of time actually just wasting your time laughing at funny images about working from home. So I typed in working from home, but really we're not just talking about working from home. We really are talking about today about how do we coach virtual teams. So when the teams are virtual, when they are working from home, when they're working from different locations, when they're interstate, international teams, what are some of the things we should be really thinking about? Now, one of the things actually that I started reflecting on is literally like maybe a month ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was coaching people, executives that we coach, and some of their action items as a result of the coaching conversations was, you know what, I really think what I need is to work from home for 1 or 2 days, like maybe one day next week, maybe schedule maybe a day a month to work from home. And I just think what's happened within our 2 or 3 week time period, where that kind of unusual way of being for some people, like I'm actually going to schedule a day where I can work from home, has gone from such a we really need to action this to this is what we're all doing. So I'm kind of thinking how crazy it is, and you might be able to comment on that as well. So what people were saying back then is they need to work from home, or they need to be having that kind of day out so that they could think, so that they could prepare, so they could prep, so that they could get their work done. And so it's very interesting to think about, what does that now mean when we do have virtual teams, and everyone or nearly everyone is in this place. And Heather Jane, thanks for jumping in. She says she agrees. Our clients have said that too. So I was just reflecting that that was one of the comments that we got a lot of coaching around. And now, of course, things are moved. And yes, by all means, sorry, I've just straight on jumped in because there's lots to share with you today. But if you'd like to share, I'm picking up your comments in the chat box, and that's a great way of interacting and sharing your knowledge and experience. And thank you. Yes, if you're collecting ICF CCEUs, continuing coach education units, then yes, this is all counting towards that. And you just need to make sure you're on the line for the full 30 minutes. So no worries about that. Alrighty. So I'm very keen to hear actually what's been your experience with the changes that are going on, and what have you noticed so far. So please feel free to jump in and tell us what you're actually noticing and what's been your experience. In the coaching that I've done in the last 3 weeks in particular, and the conversations I've been having with different clients and friends and colleagues, some people are loving it. Like, you know, that 1 hour schlep on public transport or in the car, you know, you don't have to do that anymore. People have got time in the morning. They're actually enjoying a little bit of flexibility. There's people that have said to me, you know, I can actually put dinner on, and that can be like a 5-minute break when I do something like that. Shout out to all the people on the line who are in the Defence Force, so our Air Force colleagues, who are now not having to spend Sunday night ironing uniforms for the week. So there's a lot of people that are actually really loving it. A shout out to our scientists on the line who are really enjoying not having to be at work with the millions of distractions. They can actually, all the people who are the more introverted personalities who actually are enjoying this time. But then there's others who are not so sure, and it's not going so well. So there's quite a number of people who are suggesting that the amount of Zoom meetings that are going on right now is unbelievably overwhelming. So all of a sudden it's gone crazy. If I look at the number of apps and things I've got open now, I've got Microsoft Teams, I've got WebEx, I've got Zoom, I've got Skype. It's overwhelming. For some people, they're finding that the technology is hopeless. So some people are not able to work from home or work virtually because the internet's letting them down. And other people are finding that there's just no thinking time now. So that quiet time they used to have, they don't have. So let's find out what you're suggesting too. There's heaps of comments coming in, so let's share the experience of what the group's finding. Sharon says, one client says she set up her study so that in lieu of the commute, she can do yoga online. What a great idea. This has been, I think, one of the best things is that people are actually using that time to focus on their mental health and well-being and a bit of extra exercise. That's wonderful. Sonia says it saves her 2 hours a day in travel. But the family has an expectation that you'll do everything now. Right. Yes, her son wants to make, the son expects you to make the lunch every day. Yes, well, maybe we need to do a bit of retraining, a bit of coaching there. Lynn says there's a blurring of the workday and with home time. Yes, I agree. Some people are setting meetings after hours because they know that people can work. So we'll talk about that, Lynn. It's very important, isn't it? That is definitely one thing I've noticed, that blurring of the workday. You know, meetings are starting a little bit earlier. Meetings are going a little bit later. So instead of logging off and going for your exercise or spending that 1 hour commute time reading or something, people are having meetings, and that's going to be a worry, I think, in the next few weeks. Flavia says that many people are reporting feeling more productive because they aren't socializing at work. Yes. Heather Jane says the broadband has got a lot worse because everyone's on it now, so people are feeling less stressed about travel. And they're eating better because they're cooking at home more. Yeah, that is true too. That's great. Thank you. David says intentional and deliberate communication at work via Zoom is required more than ever. Yes, I like that. Intentional and deliberate communication. So purposes are often clear and connections are stronger. And leaders are thinking about how they can connect with their people. Yes, and I think, David, I absolutely agree with you. That is what it's all about now. So coaching our virtual teams is about genuine connections, how we can really make things deliberate and intentional around our communication. Yeah. Mary says, for some people it's normal. In fact, it's great. But people without good technology are relatively disadvantaged. Yeah. So the screens and that can't be heard, unseen. Christy says that people are missing the socialization of work and those kind of water cooler conversations. Yes, so I know that a couple of workplaces that I'm involved in, the chat has gone off. So people, to be productive now, have to actually close down the chat because there's so much chat going on in the side boxes. Heather Jane says interns have commented that they're saving money, which is good. Diana says that feedback from clients is that some people are enjoying more family time and others are finding it very challenging. Yes, if you look up for funny pictures on the internet, you'll see like ones where they've strapped their kids to the floor and all sorts of funny things. So yeah, it can be very difficult. It really is, with children at home, homeschooling going on. Sharon says some managers, especially in the public service, are still in denial and they haven't even got their tech in place to allow staff to work from home. Okay, so this is a very important thing. People are at different stages on the curve, and there's a big change curve going on now, isn't there? And people are on different stages of that curve from this perspective as well. Heather says she's been working with her team who found the tech overwhelming. Oh yes, you've got emails, internal messages, their mobile phone, text messages. There's a lot of ways of communicating. Catherine says she wonders if her students will enjoy the flexibility and comfort of online lessons with me so much that they won't go back to face when it's all over. Yes, that could be actually true. We'll have to wait and see, isn't it? Some people have noted that they're more easily distracted at home, feeling less productive. That's true, Susan. And one client has said a 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. do not disturb time. And this can help because people can actually have lunch without feeling guilty. So thank you very much. It's wonderful to hear what's going on out there. And I think, through this, we can actually keep ourselves informed about it. So thanks. Keep those web chats going. So there's lots of things going on out there. I'm going to return back to thinking about our responses to change. And I was thinking about it in terms of the continuum from, people have got no idea, like you've suggested, through to people who are quite used to this kind of way of working and it's fine and there's like a what's all the fuss about. So but rather than thinking of it as a continuum, I'm kind of thinking about it as the wheels are turning. They're turning in different ways for different people. And then hopefully, it's going to turn so that more and more of us will think, well, this is actually fine and what's all the fuss about? But for some people, it's a novelty and things are wearing thin. Like, the first few days of working from home was great. And I had one person who said, the first couple of days were great, but now I'm heading back into the office. And yeah, Melissa, you're spot on. She said it was great until school closed. And then homeschooling 3 little people and trying to continue to work effectively is, she's got a smiley face there, but I'm sure it might be in sometimes going out of your brains kind of face as well. So we're thinking about the continuum that people are experiencing. And, when I was thinking about our role in terms of coaching people, I just want to throw some of these models back at you and get your thoughts on them as well. So, we always had this model in our Coaching Through Change workbooks at Open Door. And we always talked about change and uncertainty being, on the line, and that it's our role to coach people to stay above the line, think about choice and values and optimism and solutions and to try to coach people who, are thinking that this is forced onto them and they're out of control and they kind of go into the victim mode, to try to coach them above the line. But I think it's, this is like a very basic diagram. And I was kind of reflecting on our discussions throughout our time together about this. And so I've kind of just added some things in there for you to think about. So during this time of change and uncertainty, some of the things that I've been reflecting on about how do we keep people, who are sitting on the line, how do we kind of shift them to be above the line if we need to from a coaching point of view. When we're working with our teams and they're virtual now, the number one thing that people are telling me is they need direction and clarity. So as leaders and coaches, anything we can do with the virtual teams to to assist people to get more direction, more clarity, given that things are completely uncertain. So I wrote a message for our surf club on Monday, which was going out in the newsletter. And by Tuesday, we had to pull the message and rewrite the message because Life Saving Victoria had changed the messages. So things are very uncertain. So we're looking at how can we coach people around getting clarity with what is actually happening. And a lot of coaching at the moment is also around how do we set up those structures and routines. So structure and routine right now, and it's okay because, you know, if you tuned into our webinar last week, you would have seen that the majority of our client base is, you know, MBTI profile with a TJ, you know, enjoys structure and routine. But now it's about what's under our control and more focus on the present and the immediate short term. So when we're coaching our teams and they're virtual, it's about focusing, for me, and you can jump in and tell me what you think, it's about focusing on the present, being in the present and the immediate short term. Yes, we have to think about the future, and a lot of people are worrying about what's going to happen and what's going to change, etc., etc. But I have found in particular focusing on the here and now and what's under our control is actually really important. And at this time, more than ever, I think is a time for us to be building trust. Because one of the things that people really dislike about virtual teams is, how do I know that people are actually working? How do I know that they're actually productive? How do I know that they're not just spending their time on FaceTime all day? You know, so there's this element of trust, I think, that needs to be built. And as leaders and coaches, that's where we're building that as we go along. So there's some of the ideas I have around, you know, some of the inputs to this, to the change and uncertainty, some of the inputs in terms of our role as coaching, in our role as coaching teams. Let me know what you're thinking about that. So in terms of keeping things nice and simple. So at the moment, what we have been focusing on in our coaching, we don't have to be rocket scientists. We do have to think of the neuroscience of things, but not necessarily being rocket scientists. And I think coming back to keeping things simple. So planning and focusing our day and coaching teams that are virtual around what's the goal, you know, just the basic grow model about what's happening now, what are we going to do today, what are we going to achieve today, any of these great coaching questions that you might have already been doing. Very important now. So when the teams are actually virtual and you can't see them every day, you can't hook in with them every day, I beg your pardon, you can't see them and it just, you know, rock up to their desk and say, what's going on, how's it going? We had already implemented this as a team, as Open Door Coaching, you know, using the GROW model, but we're definitely doing it more now on more of a daily basis. So it is really checking in with each other about what are we doing, what are we planning, and keeping things simple from that perspective. And most of you on the line will go, all right, good on you, it's the GROW model. But there's a lot of people actually that haven't really thought about using the GROW model at this time. So some of my coaching that I've been doing this week in particular has been coming back to the GROW model and actually coaching people to start remembering to say, well, what are we trying to achieve today? And what are our options? And what are you up to? And, you know, asking all these really good coaching questions. So Heather Jane says, the VUCA world, now's a lot of time to be usefully embedded. I beg your pardon. Now a lot of time to usefully embed learning with a growth mindset, being less perfectionist. Yes, I was reflecting on that as well. Yeah. An attitude of mindful experimentation, which actually makes the real world application even better. Yes, and that's very true. So a less focus on being absolutely perfect, more focus on being consistent for sure. And Flavia says it's time to uphold all those corporate values of trust, openness, integrity, isn't it? I couldn't agree more. So we're walking our talk from that perspective, from an above the line point of view for sure. So throwing some coaching tools at you in terms of how we're coaching and leading our teams in a virtual manner, keeping it simple. Look, I'm going back also, jump in and let me know what you think here, and feel free to take a screenshot of this. I'm going back to Tuckman. So we're going all the way back to 1965. Can you believe the stages of team development with Tuckman? And some people will mock me and go, oh, Tuckman, schmuckman, what's that got to do with anything, going back to 1965? Well, there's a lot of value actually. Thank you, Vicky. She says there's no mocking here. She uses it all the time. Thank you. So I have been reflecting that what's happening now with teams is a whole new set of potentially forming, storming, norming, performing, and a journey, which is the fifth thing. There's a whole new forming, storming, norming going on right now as people are moving to the virtual team environment. They do need to be forming what this actually looks like, this kind of new way of operating for some people. There's going to be storming going on, and it's going to take, I think, a few weeks for people to settle down. Already a couple of clients have been saying to me, now that things have settled down, can we look at how we do virtual training again? Can we look at how we pick up that program and start doing that training now, given, our virtual world? So there's this kind of settling process that I think is happening for some, where we're kind of getting into norming. And then, of course, once that settling process happens, we'll be performing. So in my opinion, it's important for us to be aware that this is actually going on. And good old Tuckman in 1965. Some of you, I thought, back then in 1965, I looked up what was happening. So Tuckman wrote these stages of team development back in 1965 when the Vietnam War, Operation Rolling Thunder, had just started. So the United States was invading Vietnam, and the Vietnam War started. The Sound of Music premiered in New York City. The cosmonaut Alexei Leonov, he was the first person to actually walk in space. Tom and Jerry, the cartoon series, debuted. So did the Thunderbirds. And Martin Luther King led 25,000 people in one of the biggest civil rights demonstrations in Australia. Sir Robert Menzies was our Prime Minister, and the SOBHP Alliance struck gas and then oil in the Bass Strait. And the single "I Can't Get No Satisfaction" by the Rolling Stones was released. It was the band's first #1, and they toured Australia that year. So I'm sharing those things because back in 1965, there was a lot of significant change going on in organizations, in learning, etc. And we have got those times going on now. So feel free to actually screenshot this slide, because what I'm trying to share with you here is that in each of the forming, storming, norming, and performing areas, what great coaching questions are we going to use? So, and I've just kind of used the words here, like under storming, you've got, I've got written the word challenges, but you can say, well, what challenges are there? How can we overcome the challenges? Who's having challenges? You can build the questions from here. Tuckman never made this a coaching model in the beginning, but we can turn it into a coaching model that really helps our teams right now, and really helps us coach our virtual teams. So let's look at the comments that are coming in as well. Heather Jane says she's always loved Tuckman. Bridget, hello. Thanks for jumping on. Beautiful Bridget, who's our lead assessor and our learning and development manager. She says, thinking about our typical environments and how that influences our leadership style. So transferring our leadership skills to this new environment. Beautiful questions. We can always rely on Bridget for that. She says, what can we bring from the past, our previous environments, and bring that into the present to enable our immediate future? So they're fantastic questions. What can we bring that's really great about what we're doing into this kind of new world? And that's where the forming, setting the ground rules, what do we need to be aware of, all of those things come into it. Yeah, great. Thank you. Diana says, hi, Bridget. Bridget, you're getting a lot of shout outs right now. That's very sweet. Sharon, thank you. She says it's very like the action research model too. Yes. Forming is plan. Storming and performing is act. Norming is observe in the action model, and adjourning is reflect, something along those lines. Yeah, I agree. And I actually like what you said there with adjourning. I prefer reflect, because if we roll reflect through this time right now, it's a very good thing as well. Thank you. Lots to share, isn't it? Yeah. So what we're thinking about here is taking our teams back, having a real think about as coaches and leaders how we're coaching our teams. What kind of questions should we be asking as we watch our teams and we lead our teams going through these phases? Obviously, we want them to get, comfortable and norming very quickly, but I think we also have to be realistic with what is actually going on for people out there as well. Alrighty. When we're checking in with the team, I want to remind you of the start, stop, more of, less of model. So this is a really simple model. I'm pretty sure it comes from Agile, and a lot of people are actually using this. So when we're checking in with the team, just using basic models like, what do we need to start doing? What do we need to stop doing? What do we need to have to do more of? What do we have to do less of? These kind of check-ins are really good. They're really useful right now. And it's so easy to just run a feedback model and a feedback loop with this model as well. So I definitely will throw that model at you, and we're definitely using this in our teams as well. A lot of teams are moving to those check-ins at the start of the day and check-ins at the end of the day. But depending on your team, you might do it, at the start of the week and on Wednesday, at the end of the week on Friday. Anything you can do in that regards to really make sure that your team is progressing, that they're feeling comfortable, that they're focused on their performance is really great. I also want to do a little bit of a what do we have to watch out for. So when we're coaching and leading our virtual teams, some of you have picked this up already. Thank you. Lynn, I think it was you that said, extending the workday is happening right now. We're seeing quite a bit of that. So Diana, you mentioned that as well. So we have to watch out for, I'm seeing with the executives, they would normally have potentially jumped in the car, had a 45-minute commute or a 1-hour commute on the train, and that's their unwind time. It's their transition time, transitioning from work to transitioning to home. Or in the morning, someone was sharing with me just yesterday, she transitioned from home in the morning via the commute to work. So she was thinking about the day, prepping the day, thinking ahead about meetings that she had on. So we have to watch how people are actually enabling that transition. So, and it's a very good thing to think about with our teams, to coach the virtual teams around that. How are they transitioning from work to home, from home to work? And maybe there's a routine that needs to be put in there, hitting exercise or doing something like that rather than just extending that day, I think is really important right now. It's important for people's health and mental well-being. There is a lot of significant change going on, as we know. So different people are going to respond in different ways, and looking after people's health and mental well-being is really important. As you all know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Feel free to jump in and let me know what you think there. As leaders and coaches, we want to be recognizing what I would call out of character behavior. So I'm not talking about mental health first aid issues here. What I'm talking about is it's quite usual in times of stress and pressure, and when people are perhaps sleeping less, when they're worried more about different things, that you're going to see out of character behavior. And for any of those that you jumped on in last week's webinar, we talked about this, you know, what are the different personalities going to do under pressure? So feel free to pick up that webinar and the workbook as well. We're going to see different people doing some out of character behavior. So that is about having a conversation, raising awareness, helping people focus on physical activity or mindfulness or whatever they might be doing. What's very interesting to me is that a number of my clients picked up meditation and mindfulness quite some time ago. And we have been reflecting about how mindfulness and meditation has actually been helping during these times. And for any of you that are not kind of on that train at the moment, I use an app called 10% Happier. And the reason why I was attracted to it is because it was for fidgety minds and fidgety skeptics. So, and it actually just, you know, really reinforces like a 5-minute or a 10-minute meditation, not having to sit down and go for like 30 minutes. So it was quite easy to build into my day. And a number of clients have actually done that as well, which we're finding quite effective right now to be right in the moment. Thanks, Flavia. She said she can recommend Insight Timer as another app. That's really good. Headspace app. Yep. Thanks, Heather Jane. Yeah, that's a really good one. And Sharon definitely agrees with that. Yeah. So in terms of our resilience as coaches and as leaders right now, in terms of our resilience, in terms of our ability to lead our teams and stay in the moment, I think mindfulness is really coming into that, and physical activity and making sure we eat well. You know, all of those really great habits, which we were potentially doing previously, really come to the forefront now. Yeah, thanks, Sharon. Diana agrees. She says another great app is Stop and Breathe. Which is probably what I will do straight after this webinar with you all. We might all just, you know, make a pact to stop and breathe for a minute until we get into the next meeting or whatever it might be. And the other thing I think is really coming to fruition now is kindness. So recognizing that lots of different people have a lot of different situations going on. I was talking to a person this week, one of our clients, who said that equity is a real issue right now, watching out for people who are being judgmental and watching out for what does equity mean. And what she was talking about was okay, so if I've got, you know, no kids and just a cat, you know, I'm expected to work because I don't have so-called distractions, versus the parents who actually have to homeschool right now and do their work, etc., etc. So there's these kind of, we just need to watch out for judgment. We need to watch out for feelings of annoyance or inequitable or things aren't fair. You know, just because you can work from home, I can't work from home, you know, all sorts of things are going on. That's okay for you. You've got a 3-bedroom house. I've only got an apartment, you know. So we just want to be on the lookout for those kind of things, and we're coaching people through that as well. And of course, there's a lot of messages out there in the workplace and, you know, in our social media about expressing kindness not right now. And, you know, I think that is actually one of the anecdotes to what we've got going on right now. So there you go. Jump in with your other thoughts and comments. It's only a half an hour that we have together, so I'm trying to kind of load us up with some ideas. Nothing rocket science here, but as I keep saying, the neuroscience of this is very interesting. So people, you know, under pressure, experiencing fear, the amygdala, which is the lower part of the brain, is going to be on a heightened alert, you know, putting cortisol into the body, the fight, flight, or freeze kind of responses going on. So how do we help people move through that? How do we engage that prefrontal cortex to keep connections, trust, relationships, all of those things alive? And they're very good questions for us to be reflecting on as coaches. And I did have the neuroscience in a previous webinar as well. Mary says, yes, we need to be alert to equity issues. And for people's privacy concerns, yes, absolutely. When it comes to cameras, yeah, you're right. Sharon C says, I'm seeing the gamers delegating their work delegating the work up 3 levels. Very interesting how people's compassion is not serving them. Yeah, that's very interesting. And Heather Jane says great links to the neuroscience. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so we're thinking about the delegation that's going on here. I'm thinking about, you know, whether people are bringing compassion or whether we're just forcing things through. Now, that's not to say that we can't be focused on high performance, but for me, the question is, what does high performance look like? How do we redefine what high performance looks like if we need to across the teams as well? And don't forget, we've got interstate teams, international teams, we've got time zones going on, etc., etc. So Susan says, thank you. Oh, your first coaching cafe, welcome. And she says she looks forward to next time and the opportunity to participate. Yeah, that's really wonderful. So that's some of the ideas I have to share with you. Feel free, I'll stay on the line if you want to keep jumping in with other comments, and we'll keep sharing those with the group. Think about some of your key takeaways and watch out for the registration of our next webinar. And if you are keen to get hold of the workbook and the webinar for your teams, we've put them on our shop now. It's a $95 short course, and you know, feel free to buy several hundred or thousands of those copies of the workbook. That would be fantastic. So if you want your managers to have a copy of the webinars and the workbooks that we've got there, you know, feel free to do that. Slide some of that unused travel budget across. We're partnering with the wonderful Heather Jane and her team from Synergy Global to run a webinar on mental health issues and coaching. So feel free to actually register for that. And we are donating all the funds from that program to Beyond Blue, and also to Heather Jane's intern program as well, to keep the interns, the young people and job seekers after university, keeping them going well. So feel free to register for, we've got 2 webinars coming up. And as I said, great time to be focused on our mental health and mental health in coaching, and a great opportunity to you know, support organisations like Beyond Blue, who are just doing so much for people in the workplace right now. And of course, if you have done your certificate for in workplace business coaching, now's a great time to upgrade as well. So we've got an upgrade offer. We've got the new qualifications out now. So if you've got a bit of spare budget here or there, workbooks, upgrades, mental health, lots of things that you can jump online to support us through this time as well. So Bridget says, creating new narratives around high performance and leadership. Yes, it's a really interesting time for that. I agree. And Diana says, I think the world of work has changed. Yes, I agree. And I'm very interested what's going to shake out of this. You know, there'll be things that we implement and we do right now, which will become the way we do things around here. And there'll be other things that, you know, we let go of. It will be very interesting what, you know, we have to unfreeze, like going back to Lewin's model of, you know, freeze, change, and freeze again, unfreeze. It'll be very interesting what happens when we are kind of unfreezing the way that we're going about work, and then what shape it actually takes as we move forward. Catherine, thank you. She says, thank you, Natalie and the team. Stay safe and keep well. Yeah, that's the way. David says, I like that. We need to redefine high performance. He says, I think it's already evolving, and I believe well-being practices should be a part of this, as I agree with you 100%. As a performance objective, so well-being practices should be part of this as a performance objective rather than a good to do, like a nice to have. Yeah. He says, we know how important this is, yet we still value the hustle and goal focus and leave health and fitness to care of afterwards. I'm not sure how we do it, but it needs to be done. Yes, I think that's a very big challenge, David, that you set with us, you're setting for us there. And I think particularly with what we've talked about with the extension of the normal working space. So, you know, rather than stopping work, say at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and going out for a run before dinner, people are continuing to work. So there's quite a bit of discipline I think we need to put in place around, we have to put that first. And of course, health is the thing that everyone's concerned about now. So how do we really bring that through as something that you know, when as things are changing, we're really focused on, and not just washing our hands, but real health. Yeah. Thanks, Diana. She says another great coaching cafe session. Thank you, and it's delightful for everyone to be coming back. Thanks, Bridge. Thanks, Vicky. Flavia says there's such a wonderful opportunity to create what we call the new normal. Yes, there's a few people that are a bit worried about saying, is this going to be normal? I think we're still in that, we're still definitely in that kind of forming, storming, what is it going to look like, norming kind of phase for sure. You know, there's some people that still haven't made the transition yet. So they're still going into work as they would normally into their offices. So that's interesting as well. Heather Jane says, thanks very much, Natalie and the team. Always a pleasure to join you. Yes, thanks so much for your conversation, Heather Jane, and everyone. She says, stay safe and stay well. So thank you. Lovely. Feel free to continue to jump on, everybody. Share your ideas, share the things that you're thinking about, any tips, etc. It's a really great opportunity to come together. So Steve, ciao to you as well. He said thanks and ciao. So yeah. David says, thanks, Natalie. I love the simplicity of it because there's so much information out there. Yes, I think that's what I was reflecting on. Thank you for mentioning that. There is so much going on out there, so much, you know, join this, do that, do this, do that kind of thing. I just wanted to come back to the basics of what we do, what's in our blood from a coaching point of view, how we're going to move forward, be aware of the changes that are going on with people, and how we use our coaching tools to actually work through that. So it's not rocket science. It's not like we have to learn a whole, you know, 50 million new tools or ways of operating. It's really bringing our leadership and our coaching skills to the forefront. And as I said, with a focus on, you know, mindfulness and being present in the moment, I think is what we really need. So Sharon says sometimes it's affirming that what we're doing is extremely helpful. I agree with you. I think it is affirming, but it is digging deeper. So it's a great opportunity to think about it from that perspective. Yeah. Thank you, Heather Jane. She says she's done our certificate for and diploma and highly recommends the courses and the updates to the team. Thank you. Thanks, David. It's a pleasure. Thanks for your comments as well. Alrighty, feel free to, you know, download hundreds and hundreds of copies of the workbook. Thanks, Mary. She says, thanks, Natalie and the team. A terrific session. Yeah. So I just really want to encourage everyone to really focus on what we bring as coaches, and what's in our blood now can really come to fruition. As I mentioned, we've been using the GROW model all the time. Every day, you know, we're using it, but now we're actually as a team going, all right, what are we achieving this week? What are we achieving today? And we have these kind of little short stand-ups, and then we go off and do our thing. So when I say stand-ups, I mean, you know, literally stand-ups or hook-ins over Zoom, etc. And a lot of this is going on. Actually, it's a really good practice to do these short, sharp Zoom meetings or whatever they might be, and then actually get on with the day. So that's where we're focusing on what the performance looks like as well. Yeah, Troy, I agree with you. He says exploring what high performance looks like in today's working environment will help give that clarity and confidence. Yes. So it's a very interesting comment because there's been a couple of people that I've coached where they said, we're not lowering the standards. We're not lowering the bar. We're actually saying, what does high performance look like? How do we continue to achieve our business objectives, achieve high performance, given that the way we work is actually changing? And I like that question because the word is changing. It's not like changed and that's it. It's changing often, and that's a really good thing to reflect on. Thank you. And how do we look after ourselves, Sharon? You're always just jumping in with those excellent additional questions. Yeah. So how do we achieve high performance in the business objectives and at the same time look after ourselves, look after our families, look after our extended families, look after our communities, look after our teams? Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. Alrighty. Feel free to jump in, everybody. I'm going to be around for a little bit longer, so I don't mind connecting with you and sharing the ideas that you have and the models that you have. That's really wonderful. Alrighty. Well, it looks like we're coming to an end of our discussion. So I want to thank you all for being on the line. I want to really encourage you to really bring your coaching skills to fruition. I really want to encourage you to really look after yourself and think about that time that you give yourself just to take that quiet time out, recenter, focus on what is in our control, focus on what we can do rather than we can't do. You know, all of those things that we all take for granted as great coaches. So I wish you all the best. Stay safe, and I look forward to you joining us on our next coaching cafe, which will be same time next week. So take care, everybody.